Hello, I'm Glenn, and I'm here at the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite primary sources related to the American Revolution, common sense. The identity of the author was kept hidden when it was first published, but we now know that it was written by Thomas Paine, who at the time had recently moved to Philadelphia from Great Britain. By the time of his arrival in 1774, relations with Britain had been deteriorating for over a decade. They deteriorated even further after his arrival with the battles of Lexington and Concord in April 1775, followed by the Battle of Bunker Hill 2 months later. Despite this, the colonies were still attempting reconciliation. So, sometime in late 1775, Paine began writing the pamphlet which he had originally wanted to call Plain Truth, but at the suggestion of Benjamin Rush was given the title of Common Sense. It was published at the beginning of 1776 and has been estimated to have sold as many as 150,000 copies. For reference, this was out of a population of around 3 million. It's significant in that it won thousands of Americans over to the idea of independence. This was recognized even at the time, as evidenced by a letter which George Washington wrote to Joseph Reed at the beginning of April, in which he claimed that by private letters from Virginia, I find common sense is working a powerful change there in the minds of many men. William Gordon, a contemporary historian, described common sense as being received with vast applause and recommended as a work replete with truth. Let's look at why exactly common sense was so successful. One reason is that it was written in a way that was comprehensible to the average reader. Thomas Jefferson even wrote in 1821 that no writer has exceeded Paine in ease and familiarity of style, in perspicuity of expression, happiness of elucidation, and in simple and unassuming language. Of course, the main reason for its success was its content, including an attack on the idea of monarchy. Paine wrote that the state of a king shuts him from the world, yet the business of a king requires him to know it thoroughly. One can imagine a middling farmer in Virginia reading this and thinking that Paine has a point. King George III lives in a palace. What does he really know about their day-to-day concerns? Paine also responded to an argument that he claimed to have heard in favor of hereditary succession, which was that it prevented civil war. Paine's counter-argument was that England had seen a number of civil wars and rebellions during its history, leading him to conclude that monarchy and succession have laid not this or that kingdom only, but the world in blood and ashes. It is worth noting that Common Sense was published 13 years after the end of the 7 Years' War, or as it was known in America, the French and Indian War. So, Common Sense was being read by people who not only remembered that war, but were also hearing news of the aforementioned battles, as well as the Battle of Great Bridge, which took place here in Virginia a month before the publication of Common Sense, and was followed by the burning of Norfolk, which was almost simultaneous with publication. Therefore, this would likely have resonated with them. Paine also claimed that King George was paid 800,000 sterling each year merely to make war and give away land, actions which served to impoverish Britain. He closed out the section on monarchy with, "Of more worth is one honest man to society, and in the sight of God, than all the crowned ruffians that ever lived." From there, Paine proceeded to refute arguments against independence, which he was either anticipating or had heard already. One is the idea that severing the connection with Britain would be a detriment to America's economy. He replied, "The commerce by which she hath enriched herself are the necessities of life, and will always have a market while eating is the custom of Europe." To the argument that Britain provided defense for its colonies, Paine not only responded that they did so purely for their own interests, but asserted that any submission to or dependence on Great Britain tends directly to involve this continent in European wars and quarrels, and sets us at variance with nations who would otherwise seek our friendship, and against whom we have neither anger nor complaints. This also would have resonated with those who remembered the French and Indian War. There was an earlier draft where Paine made his case from a geographical perspective, writing of 3 millions of people flocking to the American shore every time a vessel arrives from England to know what portion of liberty they shall enjoy. By the time of publication, it had been changed to be always running 3,000 or 4,000 miles with a tale or a petition, waiting 4 or 5 months for an answer, which when obtained requires 5 or 6 more to explain it in, will in a few years be looked upon as folly and childishness. The idea of being governed from across an ocean may not seem like a folly in the age of the internet and telephones, but in 1776, one could see Paine's point. Paine ends his thoughts on the present state of America with a call to action. Every spot of the old world is overrun with oppression. Freedom hath been hunted round the globe. Asia and Africa have long expelled her. Europe regards her like a stranger, and England hath given her warning to depart. Oh, receive the fugitive, and prepare in time an asylum for mankind. This quote illustrates why common sense resonates with me. In an age of monarchies, here was a work that challenged the idea and inspired those who would form our nation. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to check out the other videos in our primary source series and more on our YouTube channel. We hope you like, comment, and subscribe to get more great content from Jamestown Settlement and the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown.